Hey, what's up? Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Dean Kulaweera here. Thanks so much for tuning in. And my apologies. I've been away from doing the live streams for a couple of weeks. Had this bad bout of what's that thing that happens to the throat? Tonsillitis, right? I had a bad bout of that, so I was kind of out. And when you're a recruiter and something messes up with your voice and all that, that's terrible, right? I mean, the equivalent of a recruiter losing their voice or tonsillitis or something is like the equivalent of like a software developer, heaven forbid, something happening to their hands, right? But anyway, I'm glad to be back, and live streams are back. So if this is your first time tuning in, make sure you mark your calendars. Wednesdays, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone. That's when I do these live streams, and I talk about a variety of job search related topics to help you folks out in your job search. And what I'm going to be speaking about today is why your interviews are not converting into job offers, right? So I'm going to get into that topic right away. By the way, just as a heads up, if you want to follow me on all of my social channels where I'm active, you'll see the link scrolling down here somewhere. It's not a clickable link, but you can go to Linktree, linktr.ee/DK Tech Recruiter. That has all my social links. So if you want to check me out on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Anchor.fm, whatever your favorite platform is, chances are I'm probably on there. And make sure you say hello in the comments and start putting any questions you have about today's topic or anything job search related in the comments. And when I get to the end part of the segment, I'll respond to all of your questions at that point. All right. So don't be shy. Feel free to drop any questions, comments, feedback into the comment section. All right. So let's get started into today's topic, folks. So what I'm going to be speaking about today is, look, you're getting interviews, right? Whatever your skill set, your field is, you've been applying for the jobs, maybe you've been connecting with recruiters, whatever the case is, like you're getting interviews, but your interviews are not converting into job offers. So why is that happening, right? Or why is that not happening? Why are you not able to convert any of these interviews into job offers? Now, before I get into, some of the reasons as to why this might be happening, I wanted to start off with a few fundamentals, right? Because you had to understand a few fundamentals about the recruitment process or the hiring process before we even get into examining what might be happening here. By the way, make sure you hit like and share this stream with so anyone in your network who might want to get in on today's topic. And the likes, of course, help get this content out there so more people can benefit from the tips that I'm going to be sharing. So anyway, back to the topic, a few fundamentals, right? The first fundamental you need to keep in mind, and by the way, make sure you're taking notes, folks. This is a very important thing to understand, the fundamentals. The first fundamental you have to understand is organizations hire for one reason and one reason only, all right? I don't care what part of the world you're from. I don't care if you're from Alaska, Indonesia, Micronesia, Polynesia, wherever you are in the world, folks, all right? If you're applying for a role, if there's an organization that's looking to hire, they hire for one reason and one reason only, and that is to solve a problem or a set of problems or to produce some kind of end result or outcome, right? That is the only reason why an organization hires. It's the only reason why they want to set aside a budget to want to hire someone with a specific skill set for some type of position. Now, stay with me, all right? This is all going to make logical sense in a couple of minutes, so just stay with me here. The second fundamental one to understand is based on the first one, which is, they hire for one reason and one reason only, and that is to solve a set of problems or produce a set of outcomes. The second fundamental we need to understand before we get into why this is not converting into job offers for you. Second fundamental is they will extend an offer, and invest in the right person, uh, when they meet someone who they feel is most capable of producing the outcome that they're looking to produce, right? In exchange for what you and I call a salary or rate, right? That salary and rate for the organization, that is the investment, right? That is the investment that they're going to make in the most credible, most capable, most qualified person for the role that they're recruiting on. And the third fundamental is, if you're not getting an offer, folks, this is what it comes down to. This is the harsh reality. Okay. This might hurt. This might sting for some of you. But if you're not converting your interviews into a job offer, it's simply because the organization does not see you as that person capable of producing the outcome that they want to achieve, right? Or the set of problems that they need someone to resolve. They're not seeing you as that fit, as that person that's going to help them be able to achieve that. That's pretty much what it comes down to, right? In most cases. So with those fundamentals being said, let's get into some tips that I had that I wanted to share with you folks on how you can increase your chances of being seen as that individual that's going to help this organization. Again, solve the problems that they need solved, solve the set of problems, because it might be, hey, look, it might be multiple problems and challenges, and it might be one outcome they need you to help achieve, or maybe a couple of outcomes or end results that they want you to achieve, right? So just a couple of tips here. Now, the first tip is, and this is more so a warning versus a tip, because I see so many of you making this mistake. Do not change what is working. Folks, listen to what I'm saying. Don't you dare change what is working in your job search strategy. What a lot of you are doing is, you have one part of your job search not working, and you completely revamp your entire process. Do not do this. Okay, like if you're not able to convert interviews into job offers, only focus on that part of the process. Do not change everything that came up until that point, right? Do not change your resume. Do not change your whatever you're doing to get those interviews. Do not change what you're doing to convert those first interviews to second interviews to final interviews. All you want to focus on is that final interview that's not converting into job offers. That is the only part I want you to focus on, examining, investigating, and analyzing, like, what's happening that's not converting into job offers. Do not change your entire process. This is what so many of you folks are doing, right? If I bake a cake, okay, quick analogy here, simple analogy. If I bake a cake and that cake doesn't come out right, okay, let's say it's burnt, or I don't know, it goes up in flames or something, it makes zero sense for me to buy a new oven, right? It makes zero sense for me to say that, okay, I need to buy a new oven, or I need to buy a new house, for example, right? It makes no sense, right? The problem is how I'm baking the cake, like what I'm doing at that specific part of the process. It doesn't mean I need to buy a new oven. It doesn't mean I need to buy a new baking tray, right? It means I need to focus on that part where I'm not baking the cake correctly. And it's the same thing with this whole thing about not being able to convert your final interview into a job offer, or your interviews into job offers. You only want to focus on that part of the process. That's the only part of the process you need to change. Whatever you're doing right that's getting you interviews, do not change that. You're doing something right. Keep doing more of, or continue doing whatever it is that's getting you those results, right? And again, I really want to stress this, because so many of you, I hear this from so many of you. You're like, Dean, I'm not getting job offers, so I'm now going to work on my resume, or now I'm going to work on some other part of your process. No, folks, do not do that. Stop doing that. Okay, the problem is not getting interviews. You're getting interviews, right? So whatever you're doing up until that point, keep doing it. Do not, like, literally do not touch that part of the process. Okay, so your friend Dean's telling you here, I forbid you from touching anything up until that part of the process. Do not change anything up until that point of the process, right? We're only going to look at that part of the process where you're not able to convert interviews into actual job offers. That's all we're going to look at. So you need to start looking at your entire job search process. You need to segment it into components, right? You got the application stage, right? You got the actual interview stage, and then you got the actual, job offer negotiation stage, which is the final part. Now, there's obviously various components within each of these components of the job search process, right? But I just wanted to give you an example of how you need to be breaking down your process. So the application stage, that would be, your resume, cover letter, where you're applying, how you're applying, all that stuff. We're not going to touch that part. All we're going to look at is what's happening in the interview stage, right? That's preventing you from converting interviews into job offers. So I just want to stress that before I get into the remainder of these tips, because many of you are doing this. You're revamping your entire job search process. Do not do that. We're only going to revamp. We're only going to investigate that part where we're experiencing some kind of a barrier or setback or challenge or things not happening, right? That's all we're going to do. Very important. If you're taking notes, I want you to write that down. Only change, only investigate that which is not getting you results. That is all you're going to do. Okay, do not touch those other components where you are seeing success and you are seeing results. You're getting interviews, good. Don't change whatever you're doing to get those interviews. It means you're doing something right. You only want to look at beyond that point, right? You're getting the interviews, but you're not able to convert the interviews into job offers. So I just want to stress that. Extremely, extremely important. So with that being said, let's go into so let's start off with the first tip, which is, okay, you're not able to convert those interviews into job offers, or you're not able to convert the first interview into the second interview into the third interview into the final, et cetera, right? The first question you need to ask yourself is, which interview stage are you facing these barriers or rejections, right? Is it at the pre-screen? Is it at the first interview? Is it at the second interview? Is it at the final interview? Right? This does make a difference, folks. Right? I actually had someone. I did this post a couple of weeks back. It was an AMA, Ask Me Anything post, and people were just posting their questions on my post, and I was responding to the questions. And one of my LinkedIn connections gave me a scenario where they knew someone who was getting like 10 to 15 first interviews, right? 10 to 15 interviews, um, which is great, which is good, right? I mean, if you're getting 10 to 15 interviews total, I mean, that's pretty good, right? Now, the issue was, of those 10 to 15 interviews, none of them were converting into, the second stage interviews. No, what was the second? No, no, actually, no, sorry, none of those interviews were converting into an offer letter, right? It was a one-step interview process, right? You go in for the first interview, the hiring team makes the decision, and they put an offer on the table. So this person, they were getting 10 to 15, it was like 10, 12, 15, something like that, interviews, but none of those were converting into final interviews, right? So what the advice I gave this person was, look, first of all, tell your friend whatever they're doing to get those 10 to 15 interviews, do not touch that part of the process, right? Which I already covered in this stream already. But what they next need to investigate is for what is in common with all of these interviews, right? Like, they're getting a whole bunch of these interviews, but none of them are converting into offer letters or second stage interviews or third stage, whatever it is. What that means is something is occurring at their first interviews that is preventing them from being seen as a top candidate to move on to the next step of the process, right? Whether, again, the next step could be an actual offer, the next step could be a second interview, maybe it's a third interview, fourth interview, whatever it is, right? So you need to look for commonalities, right? So whatever this person is doing to get the interviews, that's not what needs to be investigated here. What needs to be investigated is what is transpiring at the interview itself, when they're at the interview, that's preventing them from being seen as the top pick to move on to the next step of the process, right? And this is where you got to look for patterns, folks, right? Who are you meeting with at these interviews, right? Whether it's a pre-screen, it's a first interview, it's a second interview, who are you meeting with, right? Whoever it is, and when I say who you're meeting with, is it HR people? Is it recruiters? Is it managers, right? The actual hiring managers? Is it directors? Is it VPs? Is it senior level executives? You'll start to see patterns, right? The interviews that you're successful with, let's say they've all been with, I don't know, HR, the HR manager or the recruiters. You always pass those interviews. Good. That means you're handling those conversations well. You're handling those conversations correctly. But if you're finding that you're meeting with managers, maybe directors, VPs, C-level executives, you're reaching that stage of the interview process, and you're not able to get beyond that point. Like, those are not converting into those offers, or maybe those are not converting into whatever comes in the next step of the process. Then it means you're not handling those conversations well enough, right? And for example, let's say you're doing well on the pre-screen, right, or the first interview. Let's say you're doing well at the first interview, the pre-screen, and then you get into the first interview, and you're not able to move beyond the first interview. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, we need to examine who are you meeting with on the pre-screen where you're doing well versus who are you meeting with on the first interview, which is who are you meeting with, right? The pre-screen, typically that's a recruiter or maybe an HR manager. Okay, great. You're doing well at those interviews. Perfect. They see you as a great candidate, and they move you on to the first interview process, first interview in the process, right? Which usually consists of the actual hiring manager themselves. Now, if you're not able to move beyond that first interview, that means something is transpiring in your conversations with those individuals that you're meeting with in the first interview, right? Maybe typically it's a hiring manager. So what that means is there might be a discrepancy between how the HR manager is seeing you, how the recruiter is seeing you, versus how the actual hiring manager is seeing you, right? So maybe you're able to get past the pre-screen, but maybe the hiring manager, they're diving deep into maybe a specific part of your experience. Maybe there's a specific requirement for the role that they're really driving into at the first interview. Maybe it's a tool, maybe it's a software, maybe it's a technical skill. I don't know what it is. It could be anything, folks. Like, this is where you got to investigate yourself, right? And at that first interview, the hiring manager is simply not seeing you as a strong fit, and that's preventing you from moving forward, right? So this is where I also give this advice. Like, I highly recommend everyone keeps a journal and make you know uh, logical um, observations is in terms of what's happening at your interviews, right? And you got to document these things and take an honest look at what's happening and what might be preventing you from moving forward, right? And you got to be honest with yourself. So again, this tip is which interview stage. Like, you got to be examining which interview stage are these barriers or rejections occurring. Is it the pre-screen? Is it the first interview? Is it the second interview? Like these barriers, like wherever you're coming to a halt, you're coming to a stop. This is going to prevent you from moving on to that offer stage, right? Where they actually want to provide you with an offer or put an offer on the table. So you need to examine which stage are you facing these rejections, and then you need to examine who am I meeting with at these particular interview stages. Again, whether it's pre-screen, first interview, second interview, final interview, whatever it is. What level of the organization are you having these interviews with, that and they're not seeing you as the ideal fit for the role, right? That's what you need to examine. And I just want to speak a bit more about this because the which category of stakeholders you're facing rejection from can make a difference, right? I kind of already touched on this, but is it HR? Is it the actual hiring manager, right? Is it someone at the director level? Is it someone at the VP level? Is it someone at the C level, right? If they're not seeing you as a fit, if they're coming back with feedback like, we appreciate your time, but we don't, we're not going to move on to the next step of the process, or we don't see you as a fit for the role, blah, 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 whatever it is, it could mean you might not be speaking their language, right? And this is something I advise people when they find themselves not being able to move through, the first step, second step, third step of the interview process and all that. Because, how you present yourself or how you communicate yourself or articulate your experience to maybe a team lead or a manager might be very different from how you present yourself to, someone at the executive level, right? Like a VP or a C-level executive. Like, you can use the same pitch, folks, right? And this is my problem with those of you that are going out there. You're going on Google and looking for, these perfect responses to certain questions you might get asked. But the fact is, whether you respond to a question correctly could depend on who is asking the question, right? Like a hiring manager might be more concerned with, the day-to-day stuff, right? Like they might be more concerned with your ability to handle the daily day-to-day responsibilities, right? And if you present yourself as someone, from that angle, like, how you approach certain day-to-day challenges or tasks and stuff like that, hey, that's great if it's a hiring manager, right? Who's going to be directly managing you. But then let's look at you going on to the next interview and you're speaking to maybe, I don't know, like a vice president or a C-level executive. Like, these are big picture people, right? I mean, they're looking at the big picture in most cases. So if you start talking about day-to-day like how you're going to be dealing with day-to-day responsibilities and duties and tasks and stuff like that, I mean, yeah, maybe some of these senior executives might see value in that, but they want to see how you fit into the big picture for the most part, right? So if you're not able to speak their language, right, you got to be able to show how you can fit into their big picture goals and plans and all that stuff. If you're not able to communicate that, they're not going to be able to see you as that ideal fit, right, for the role. So you might not get the thumbs up from them, right? So again, maybe it's like a team leader or manager that's interviewing you. Yeah, maybe you want to talk about the day-to-day tasks and challenges and give examples from past companies you worked at where you were able to deliver on the day-to-day stuff. But if you're speaking with like a senior executive, you want to show how you can help them achieve those big goals they have, right? Whatever the So this is where you got to ask your own questions as well, right? Get to understand what their goals, what their vision is for the department or for the company, right? And then that's where you want to give examples of yourself and how you have helped achieve those big picture plans and goals and visions for current and past employers as well, right? Like you got to adjust your pitch, folks. You can't use the same pitch for every person you meet. It's just not feasible. It's just not gonna appeal to every single person that you get interviewed by, right? You guys get what I'm saying? So you have to be able to adjust your pitch, right? Who are you meeting with? Is it an HR person? Is it a recruiter? Is it a manager? Is it a team lead? Is it a senior level executive? Is it a director, a VP, a C-level executive? Like, you got to understand and you got to speak their language, and you got to position yourself that makes sense for them, that makes it relevant to them, right? And I know from experience. Like, I remember many years ago, I was interviewing for a role, and I made this exact same mistake, right? I did a great job with my direct manager, with the potential direct manager who was interviewing me. So I spoke about how I can help them with the day to day stuff, and the day to day tasks and duties and responsibilities and blah blah blah, all that stuff. And this manager loved me, absolutely loved me. I'm not exaggerating, because after the interview, she actually gave me a call and sent me an email, and she was like, "Look, your next interview is going to be with so and so. If you have any questions about preparing for the interview, here's my phone number, here's my direct line. If you have any questions about that, myself and the HR person, we really like you. We want you to win at this interview. So just let me know if you need any help. Blah blah." So anyway, I go on to the next interview. So I got all cocky and overconfident, right? Because I'm like, oh yeah, this is pretty much in the bag. This hiring manager, sees me as the right fit for the role. So overconfidence can really kill you, folks, right? All right. So then I went in this next interview, and it was with, I think this person was like the vice president, or like, I think maybe even like some C-level executive at this organization. And I started talking about, again, I thought it's going to be the same conversation as with the hiring manager, right? Who I had with before. And I started talking about and presenting myself, strictly based on these day-to-day stuff that I can do for this company. And the vice president, this executive, I mean, they were nice and professional and all of that, but I could tell, like, they just didn't they weren't excited about me. They just didn't see me as helping them with what they wanted to achieve, despite the fact that they kept talking about their overall vision and plan for the company and for this team. I didn't take advantage of that, and I didn't show them how I can help them achieve their vision, like from that standpoint, right? Instead, I kept going on and on about all the day-to-day stuff that I can do for them. And for sure, maybe they did appreciate that, but they just didn't see me as fitting into, or maybe I didn't do as good of a job as I could have in how I can help them achieve their those big vision and big goals. So how you pitch yourself, how you present yourself, that can prevent you from moving on further along the process, right? So I just wanted to really, drive that home as well. Now, the next tip is, folks, and this is what I would say, not all of you are doing this at your interviews, is you have to uncover the hiring motivation at each level of stakeholder, right? What is the hiring motivation? Look, for every role out there might be several different stakeholders involved in the actual hiring decision, right? There might be, the actual hiring manager who's going to be managing you. There could be someone at the director level, someone at the VP level, someone at the C level. Like, each of them have various hiring like motivations in terms of what they want to accomplish as a result of hiring you, right? And you got to make sure that you're speaking to their specific problem. And I kind of already covered this because I'm kind of transitioning into this in a bit more detail. Like, you got to speak to their specific problem and how you fit into, their motivation, right? Like, what do they hope to achieve by having you in this role, in this position, right? Like, if you're not figuring this out, if you're not asking questions from them and getting to know why they're looking to hire, what they want to achieve, like, these are questions you need to be asking throughout the interview process, folks, right? It's not just about the kind of responses you're delivering, but you got to ask questions during the interview process that helps you better understand the person that you're speaking with, right? Because if you're not doing that, you're not going to know how to sell yourself, right? So whoever you're meeting with, whether it's a hiring, again, maybe it's a manager level, maybe it's someone at the manager level, maybe it's someone at the director level, the VP level, the C level, you got to ask them, you know, why are you looking to hire for this position right now? What are you hoping to achieve as a result of, this person being involved in the project, right? What do you hope to? What's your vision for the first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? Like these are questions you got to be asking so you can better understand the person sitting across from you, folks, right? And that's going to give you clues as to where they stand, like how what their involvement is, what's their stake in this project, what's their stake in having you on board in this project, right? The better you understand that, the better you're going to be able to be to really position yourself as someone that they would see as an asset, right? But you got to be asking the questions. You got to be uncovering that hiring motivation, right? And the final thing I wanted to talk about is, look, ultimately you got to have a certain level of self-awareness. Like you got to be self-aware about your own, and what I mean by this is you got to be self-aware about your own shortcomings, because your shortcomings can be the reason why they don't want to move ahead with you, and they're not telling you what those shortcomings are that is of concern to them, right? Because look, we're living in times where people do not want to be confrontational, right? People want to be, politically correct. People want to be polite. People don't want to hurt other people's feelings. And the downside to that is you might never know what the real reason or what the real concern is of the person sitting across from you, right? Whether again, maybe it's a manager, maybe it's a director, maybe it's a VP, maybe, I don't know, whoever it is, folks. You got to understand that they might not want to offend you, and because of that they might not want to tell you what their actual concern is in regards to you, in regards to why they don't want to move ahead with you. So this is where you got to practice some self-awareness, and even be willing to bring up what the actual concern might be, so you can actually have a discussion about it. So again, this is where you got to, you got to have that level of self-awareness, right? You got to show them why you can still deliver despite some of your shortcomings, right? And what your shortcomings are, like you're gonna have see clues in regards to what these are over the course of the interview, right? Maybe they ask you about something that's required for the role, and you're like, oh well, I have some experience with that, and you talk about some of that experience, and they don't really tell you that that's an issue, but you got to keep in mind these things, right? So when you reach that stage where where the discussion is about next steps, or maybe that they're going to get back to you with feedback soon and all that, maybe you might have to bring it up and let them know, hey, look, Mr. and Mrs. Hiring Manager, look, I know we discussed XYZ earlier on, and I know that this was an area that I'm not really strong in, or I don't have much experience with. Do you feel like that would prevent me from being successful in this role? Like, is that something important to you? Is that something that you want in the ideal candidate for this role? Like, you have to be willing to ask these tough questions, folks, and uncover whether that in fact is a concern, right? Because they might not tell you up front. Again, right? Again, like I'm saying, like we are living in times where people do not want to offend other people. People don't want to hurt other people's feelings. And yeah, on the one side, maybe that's good and that's nice and that's warm and that's fuzzy and all that. But on the other side, the downside is we have to we have to do more investigation to figure out if there's anything that might prevent us from being considered as a viable candidate, that they don't want to confront us with. They don't want to tell us. So this is where we got to practice our investigative skills and figure out, okay, what might be preventing me from being considered for the role? What might be preventing me from being considered for as someone that they want to put an offer in front of, right? So this is where you got to do that. And again, you got to be taking mental notes throughout the interview. Okay, so we discussed this. So maybe I'm not strong in this area. Okay, I gotta keep that in mind and maybe ask them about that later on. Okay, we talked about this area. Same thing. I'm a little bit weak in this area. Blah blah blah. Whatever. Like, you gotta keep track of these things, and when it reaches that part of the conversation where they ask you, "Hey, do you have any questions?" or appreciate your time. We're gonna get back to you soon with any feedback. This is where you gotta clarify these final things, folks, so you can understand whether there might be some things that is a concern for them, but they don't want to confront you with. So you need to be willing to bring some of these things up to the surface, where at least you can address them. Because you might say, hey, look, Mr. and Mrs. Hiring Manager, I know we discussed XYZ. I know that's an area that I'm not really strong at. Is that a concern for you? Or do you feel that this would prevent me from succeeding in this role? And you know what? When you bring that up yourself, whatever this area of concern, this area of weakness, or the shortcoming is, they feel relief, because now they know that it's okay for them to discuss this, right? That you're actually bringing it up yourself. So that means you're open to discussing it, and that gives a whole bunch of relief for the interviewer. And then they might be like, well, I mean, yeah, that is something important for the role. So ideally we are looking for someone who is strong in that area. Okay, great. So now at least you can address this area now, right? Versus suddenly getting feedback from them saying that, hey, we appreciate your time, but we're not looking to consider you for the role right now, and they're not gonna tell you what the actual reason is. So this is where you bringing it up yourself, again, it allows you to at least address what some of the potential concerns might be, because they might not always tell you up front what those concerns might be. And these might be the very things. And folks, I'm telling you, 99% of the time, these are the things that prevent you from being considered for the next step of the process, or being considered as someone that they want to put an offer in front of, simply because they don't want to confront you about something, right? So you have to be willing to uncover these things, investigate these things up front, so you can at least address them. At least you're putting yourself in a position of somewhat control, right? Because now you can at least address these shortcomings, and your next task is to show why you are still a strong and viable candidate despite those shortcomings, right? And of course, that's a topic for another live stream. But look, I hope today's segment helped you out. That's what I wanted to discuss with you folks today, in terms of what might be preventing you from moving forward. So I hope today's live stream helped you folks out there. Make sure you hit like, and make sure you share if you found this segment helpful. And again, make sure you follow me on all my social channels. If you have any questions about today's topic, certainly feel free to start putting your questions in the comments. I'm going to get to your questions and comments shortly. And just a quick reminder, make sure you subscribe to my LinkedIn newsletter as well. Really appreciate everyone who has subscribed to my newsletter already. All my links, including my newsletter link, is at my Linktree page, which is scrolling down below here. So just wait for it to come around again if you missed it. But it's linktr.ee/DK Tech Recruiter. Or if you're watching this on LinkedIn, just head on over to my profile after the stream has ended, and in the featured sections, you see a link for my newsletter. Just click on that, and within the newsletter, there's an option to subscribe to my newsletter. I release a new edition every week on Monday, so make sure you check that out. All right. And if you're an IT professional, or if you're an organization looking for IT talent, make sure you reach out to me for more information on how I can help you. Again, maybe you're an IT professional and you're looking for your next opportunity. Let me know a bit more about yourself. And if you're an organization, you're looking for your next IT hire, you're experiencing challenges in finding people for your team, whatever the skill set, certainly reach out to me, and for more information on how I can potentially help you with that, and in regards to your recruitment goals, right? So appreciate everyone tuning in, and feel free to put your questions in the comments right now, and I will get to your questions and comments. We got someone says, welcome back. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Someone says, great to have you back, Dean. Appreciate that. Really good to be back. We got my friend Raphael in the house. Peace from GA, from Georgia. Hey, good to have you here, Raphael. Thanks so much for your comment. Hope you're doing fantastic, my friend. And we got Peter. Good shout out to Peter. Good to have you here. Peter says, at least recently it is communicated why I'm not the ideal candidate. Yeah, you know what, Peter? I know it might, that rejection might sting. And this goes to all of you out there. Look, folks, if you're getting feedback and they're telling you why they're rejecting you, why they're not considering you for the role, I know it can sting, right? I mean, hey, it happens to everyone. It happens to me as well, right? I mean, when you get constructive criticism, or they're like, oh, we can't consider you because of XYZ, I know it can sting, but be grateful for it, folks, right? Because a lot of times, I mean, I'd say a lot of you folks, you're gonna be experiencing no feedback whatsoever at all. Like, it's gonna be a complete mystery. You're not even gonna know why you're being rejected. So in those cases where you do receive feedback, you do receive reasons as to why you're being rejected. Yes, it stings. Yes, it hurts, but at least you're getting that feedback. So be appreciative of it. So Peter, hopefully you were able to get that feedback and you're able to work on it, because at least now you can work on that stuff, right? Abdullah Mahmoud. So shout out to Abdullah. Good to have you here, my friend. Appreciate you tuning in today. So Abdullah says resume tips. So resume tips, I mean, there's so many resume tips I can share with you, Abdullah, but I would say, two main things that I see lacking in so many resumes. Number one, resume is not customized for the role that the person is applying for. So make sure, Abdullah, you are customizing your resume for every single position that you're applying for, right? Now, I know this is tedious, and this is not just for Abdullah, for everyone else out there. I know this is tedious. I know it's time consuming. I know it's, annoying. Like, you got to customize your resume for every single damn position that you're applying for. But this is something you have to do, folks. All right. I know it's tedious. I know it's repetitive. I know it's time consuming, but I want you to customize your resume for every single position that you apply for, because that's how you're going to grab the attention of the reader. Remember, folks, the resume is not just about you. It is about the reader, right? If I write a book, okay, is the book for me or is it for the reader? right? Am I writing the book to appeal to the reader, or am I writing the book to appeal to me, right? Let me know in the comments, folks. Like this is a simple analogy I'm giving you, folks, right? When an author writes a book, they want to appeal to the reader, right? Because if the reader doesn't if the reader doesn't like the book, then there's not going to be any book sales, right? So it's the same thing with your resume. You got to make sure your resume is written with the reader in mind, and the reader is going to be a recruiter, it's going to be an HR person, or it's going to be an actual hiring manager, right? Those are the readers. So you got to customize your resume for the person reading your resume. Now the second thing is, Abdullah, you have to make sure that you're using the right channels to distribute your resume. Like you got to be putting out the right channels, right? So don't just stick to one channel. Don't just apply for jobs on LinkedIn or one favorite place. Like you got to use LinkedIn, you got to use Monster, you got to use Indeed, whatever your local job board, popular job board is. Use that. Apply directly on the careers pages for the organizations that you're interested in. Like you got to use multiple channels, folks. That's how you multiply your chances of getting responses, right? So use multiple channels. And the third thing, Abdullah, third piece of advice for the resume is, folks, you got to write about outcomes and end results that you helped achieve, right? Don't just talk about what you did, talk about the outcomes, right? This is something I see so many people are not putting on their resume. They're not talking about outcomes. Now, if you're taking notes, I want you to write down what I'm about to say right now because it's extremely crucial. And it is this: companies, organizations are not investing in you to simply perform tasks. They're investing in you to produce outcomes, right? Those outcomes could be solving problems, solving a set of problems. They could be achieving some kind of end result, right? Whatever, like increasing sales, saving time, saving money, increasing efficiency, reducing customer complaints, reducing lag time, whatever, folks. Like you understand what I'm saying, right? You have to connect what you did with some kind of end result or outcome. And this is something I see missing on so many resumes. And you know what? That is the thing that's gonna impress people the most, folks. Right? So when someone's reading the resume and they're like, okay, this person did this task or this thing, resulting in blah blah blah, whatever, increase customer satisfaction, uh, time savings of 3 hours in the process, whatever. Like you get my point, folks, right? You have to connect what you did with an outcome or set of outcomes or end result or a problem solved or something like that. Like this is what is lacking in so many resumes, right? So look, Abdullah, I hope these tips helped. But I would say that last one, folks, that last tip I spoke about for the resume is probably the most important. You have to connect what you did with an end result or an outcome, because that is what companies are investing in you for. Companies are investing in you to help them with producing some kind of end result, whether that end result is resolving a set of problems or challenges or producing some kind of set of end results or outcomes or ROI or whatever it is. You have to communicate that on your resume. That's what's going to really get the attention. Aside from the keywords, that is probably the most important thing, right? What results can this person potentially help us achieve? And you got to communicate that on your resume from your current and past employers, right? So hope that helps, Abdullah. And a great question there. We got Lee Ching says, thank you. It's helpful. No worries, Lee Ching. Thanks so much for your feedback and thanks so much for tuning in. Abdullah says, thank you so much. No worries, Abdullah. Thanks so much for your participation today and for your comment and question. And we got Corey in the house as well. Excellent point. Thanks so much, Corey. Really appreciate it. And, appreciate you tuning in and for your comment as well. So looks like that's all of the questions and comments for today. So folks, make sure you tune in. Mark your calendars. I'm going to be here every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone. So mark your calendar. I'll be back again next Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone. And I'll speak about, some other job search related topic. If there's any particular topic you want me to cover in detail, drop it in the comments, right? Don't be shy, folks. Drop it in the comments. Let me know. And I will look at the comments afterwards. And I'll take a look at if there's any interesting topics you folks want me to talk about. And I will do my best to cover it in the next stream. If not the next stream, some future stream. All right. So again, don't forget to hit like. Don't forget to share this stream with your colleagues or friends or someone struggling in their job search. And I'll see you again next week, folks. All right. See you again next week. Have a fantastic week, everyone. Have a awesome, positive, productive day. And I'll see you around next time. Take care.